We'll just start with you, Stu.
Hey, Sean, a lot of the players have talked about, just the message that you gave of having, just a certain number of days remaining, in the year as far as, maybe creating a sense of urgency or whatever it was that that was ultimately trying to accomplish. I'm wondering, how do you decide, kind of the timing and the tone of those messages and ultimately what's going to resonate the most with players in terms of getting the desired result?
Yeah, I think it's kind of on a case by case. We always try to think about as coaches, what's the best way to try to connect with these guys. And anything that I say, I'm always talking to myself first. So you can look at different circumstances and situations that have taken part throughout the course of the year. But hey, how do we create the appropriate perspective, the appropriate response day in and day out to elicit the chance for us to be at our best and to have no regrets when we look back on it. And I've been really pleased with the way that the guys have handled it. This has been a really fun team, a team that I think has gotten more and more connected as this season has gone, which I think it's always about coming together as a team, especially at the right time. And I think that's been illustrated. And we still have a lot of work to do, but it sure has been a fun journey with a lot of different experiences where I think real growth has occurred.
Besides that connectedness and growth, what else do you like about the response you've seen, especially over the last 4 weeks?
Yeah, I just think the mental and physical toughness that shows up. I think the mental toughness by guys being able to interact, and respond the way that we want, be able to stay connected with one another. And then I think the physical toughness with the way that we've played on both sides of the line of scrimmage, I think that's served us really well. And I think it's allowed us to be able to play complementary football and find different ways to win different games.
Appreciate it.
You got it, man.
Adam.
Sean, any injuries of note coming out of yesterday?
No, I think we're good. I think we'll have our typical bumps and bruises, but it seemed like everybody came out pretty clean. Don't expect that to affect anybody's status moving forward, which is a blessing.
If we could go back to that first Cardinals game, you lose a lopsided one to go 0-2, and Cooper gets hurt, Jonah gets hurt, John Johnson gets hurt, on top of all the other injuries from week one. Just what was the process of kind of picking up the pieces from those games and figuring out how to move forward with who was available at the time?
Yeah, it seems like that was an eternity ago. These seasons are long and there's a lot of different experiences. And, ultimately, I think the guys have just stayed the course. I do think that a lot of those things that we had to navigate through did provide us a callus, where there's some of that resilience and that toughness. I think it forced us to develop some depth that we wouldn't have done otherwise. Guys have gotten opportunities to step up. Those are challenging things, and really a lot of that stuff started in the off season and into training camp. And it felt like it was kind of when it rains, it pours those first few weeks of the season. But our guys have just stayed the course. They focused on what they could control one day at a time. I love the response that we had the following week, even though we didn't necessarily start off that game against the Niners the right way. But this is a great football team we got coming in here. Obviously, they posed a lot of different problems for us, and we've got our work cut out for us, and that's why I'll be excited to really jump into them after I get done with you guys here.
I know there was a lot of season left at that time, but did it feel like a pivotal moment to see how the team responded to that loss?
I felt like in the moment it was a humbling day. I do think that if there's anything you've learned, you want every single game matters so much, but you don't want to ride the emotional roller coaster that these games can take you on. If you do have the ability to stay steady, to stay the course and try to right the ship. And certainly we're, that is not complete by any stretch, but our guys have done an excellent job of not allowing the way that we started, especially in those first 5 games, to affect what we did coming off of that bye. But that week 2 game was certainly a really humbling one, and they dominated it from the start.
What are the biggest ways you've seen your team grow since then?
Well, I think we've gotten a rapport. I think we've gotten a lot of experience, particularly with some of the younger guys that are playing on defense. I think we've been able to establish an identity as we've accumulated some experience together. I think we've been able to stay healthy on the offensive side of the ball and develop a little bit of a rapport offensive line wise. Obviously, you get Puka back, and Cooper. That's a big difference. But I think just the continuity on both fronts has been a big difference.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Hey, real quick, guys, before we keep going, if you're not talking, please mute your phone. Thanks. I'll go with you, Gary.
Hey, Sean.
Hey.
you know, you've had some games this year actually throughout since the stadium's opened where teams that travel really well have made it kind of tough on you guys. This is a crowd, at least typically from Arizona, that does not bring that kind of crowd. What kind of atmosphere do you anticipate on Saturday, or what would you like to see?
A great home atmosphere. You know, I think the fans will be excited. I think our players have, you know, given them a lot of good things to be able to cheer about over the last month. Obviously, the last time that we were home, an incredibly exciting game against the Bills, but I expect a really good atmosphere with a lot of potential things at stake. And, you know, this is one of those deals that I think it'll be a great crowd and a great Rams home field atmosphere.
You know,
what do you think, Gary?
Well, I would guess this would be an opportunity for you guys to have a real home field advantage, which
Here you
I mean, do those
That's
games...
the spirit. That's the positive spirit I need from you, Gary. I agree with you, though. That's what we expect as well. I'm right there with you, man.
In terms of things that might be at stake, you know, I guess that Thursday night, Seattle at Chicago on Thursday night, depending on how that goes, you guys could be in a position to clinch the division on Saturday. And I know you're very focused on day to day, but do you allow yourself at all to consider that scenario at this point?
I mean, I think you know what's at stake, but I think what you also know is none of that really matters if you don't handle what we are responsible for controlling. And I think that has served us well. To sit here and say that you're not aware, and you know, I'm a fan of the game and you don't pay attention to it, but as far as our dialogue in the building and how that affects the way that we go about it, that isn't something that we talk about because it really doesn't have anything to do with our preparation as it relates to trying to go play our best football game Saturday night against the Cardinals. To sit here and say that, hey, if Chicago were to beat Seattle, we wouldn't be aware of what's at stake. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that's not something that we're not in tune with. But the truth is, how disciplined can we be of really focusing on the things that we can control? What I've loved about this group, Gary, is since we've kind of even talked about these types of conversations, our guys have handled their business. And the only thing that matters is, are we taking care of what we're responsible for? Fortunately, we're in a position where you don't necessarily have to rely on other things to happen if you just handle your business. That's where my focus and concentration lies. That's where our coaches and that's where our players have been throughout the course of the week as it leads into the game that we have on a weekly basis. And that'll be the same this week.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Jordan.
Hey, Sean. Good morning.
Good morning.
What went into the decision a couple weeks ago to continue Jordan Whittington in the return game, and what have you seen from him as a special teamer?
Well, I think just opportunities, Jordan. I think when you look at it, I mean, this guy's a big physical receiver. I think he's fearless. The way that kickoff return play is just set up in general, I think it's really conducive for his skill set. He hits at full speed. He's heavy on contact. He's got good contact balance. You've gotten some opportunities where you see that explosiveness and that background as an unbelievable high school running back. And so I think he's done a great job. And then, you know, obviously Chase has done an excellent job with him, and then bringing Craig Aukerman in here the last couple weeks to work with the Gunners. I thought it was a huge play that he made to be able to ultimately just end the game yesterday. He's a conscientious guy. I think he's done well with the reps that he's had as a receiver. You know, even talking about it when Adam was asking some of the questions, I thought he played really well as a receiver early on in the year when we didn't have Cooper and Puka in the lineup and got some really, you know, beneficial experience. But he's a guy that is continuing to just be able to carve out value for himself for this team, whether that's on teams, whether that's in a receiver role. And we love what he's all about. And I've been really proud of, you know, just watching him continue to grow through his rookie year.
You guys have, you mentioned it a couple of seconds ago, but you guys have done a lot of different things or tried a lot of different things with your special teams. It hasn't been I guess I would say it's been a malleable staff, as well as just seems like what you guys have been trying. Can you take us into what that has been this year and kind of how Chase has managed that?
Yeah, I think Chase has done a great job. You know, his leadership, how steady he is. Obviously, when we ended up making a change, end up bringing in Scott Frost. And I thought Chase did a great job of kind of getting him up to speed quickly. Scott obviously made his great contributions and then leaves us for UCF. No, I'm really happy for Coach Frost. It's a good deal for him. He'll do an excellent job there. But then, a lot of it, Craig Aukerman, he was one of my college coaches at Miami of Ohio. He's really the one that, I had a lot of respect for Chase from afar, but he and Chase worked together when Craig was the assistant head coach and special teams coordinator for the Titans. And so they had a relationship. He had the availability, was working, being able to kind of take some time off, work with his sons and be around his family a little bit more. And then it kind of coincided where as their seasons finished up and then Scott ends up taking the UCF job, hey, let's bring him in here for this last month. And he's a stud. He's got a great presence on the grass. He and Chase have a familiarity and a comfort with one another. And I think in a short amount of time, he's made a tremendous impact, to be able to work alongside of Chase and make some, big differences in terms of some of the things that he's helped us with over the last couple of weeks that have been key and critical for us to play well in that phase.
Thanks. And then slight pivot. With Jared Verse, we've seen his skill ascend, and we've sort of seen him ascend as a player who's talked about quite a lot across the league. And I guess I wonder, how does he also fit in with the group to you? How does he listen to his teammates or absorb from his teammates versus sort of trying to be the star?
No, that's a good question. I think he's a special player, but he's got a good humility about himself. He wants to be a great teammate. I think he's continuing to, have great ownership of where his play opportunities arise within the framework of the defense, understanding that accountability, to his teammates and to the defense. And then where are those opportunities that, all right, I've got a two-way go, or I've got the ability to be able to disrupt some things and knowing that I've got to cover me on this rush right here. Or this is a play opportunity where, I can really go cut it loose. And I've seen him be really responsive to coaching. He's an exciting guy that has a great charisma. He's got a great toughness about himself. And I think he's continuing to use all these experiences as he matures and grows. And I've been really pleased with how he's improved in terms of just the overall accountability and the understanding of where you can impact it. But every play might not be that play based on how, what the intent of the call is, or, what exactly unfolds when you're playing your 111th. So it's been good.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Wyatt.
Hey, Sean.
Hey.
What went into the decision to start Ahkello Witherspoon yesterday over Cobie Durant, and what did you see from him in that game?
Yeah, I think he's played really well over the last couple of weeks. Cobie obviously getting back off the lung contusion against Buffalo. He's a guy that we have tremendous confidence in, but thought Ahkello and Darius had played really well against San Fran. Cobie's a guy that's played at a high clip this year. And so it's a nice luxury to be able to have, three guys that we look at as truly starting corners. And then we have some guys that can be flexible in terms of playing that star position or the safety position. But been really pleased with Ahkello. I think he's played really good. I think he's competitive. He's got good length. He's got the ability to be able to, be sticky in coverage, especially on short, intermediate. And I think he's really played the ball well down the field with some of his look and lean, just techniques and fundamentals. But I thought Ahkello has played really well these last 2 weeks, and he's had some key and critical stops and some really important down and distances that have been huge for our defense, both against the Niners and obviously yesterday against the Jets.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dennis.
How you doing, Coach?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. The way you guys have played the last two games against the Jets and the 49ers on third down, how critical the way your defense is playing will that be the next two games against Arizona and Seattle?
I think it's always critical. I think what I thought yesterday was a great example of being able to just kind of make them snap at one more play. It's a very unique game when the opponent doesn't necessarily punt, but you still hold them under 10 yards. And I think that was because of our ability to make them snap it one more time, get some fourth down stops. It was just so big, just some of the stops that our defense made. I think they've been really good. We kind of combined third and fourth downs as a stat just based on, are you extending the drive or are you not? I thought we had some big time fourth down stops, Dennis. They've been outstanding the last two games. And yesterday was a little bit different than the Niners game in terms of the way that it unfolded. But I thought we played a good complementary game as a team yesterday, and I've been really pleased with our defense. I think we've been really solid on the back end as well, not giving up the explosive plays, being connected in coverage, and especially against two of the last two opponents that we played with the explosive playmakers that they have on the perimeter. I think that's been a big factor for us.
And as a follow-up, what are you seeing from Blake Corum right now down the stretch?
I think Blake's done some good things. When it's unfortunate that the one long run, I thought it was a great run that he had, on the one run around the edge that we got called for, motioning towards the line of scrimmage or shaving, if you will. It was an excellent run where, it was well blocked. He showed speed around the edge and then did a good job being able to cut back across the grain. So that was an unfortunate one that came back, but he's a stud. Hasn't maybe gotten as many opportunities because we've really leaned into Kyren, and Kyren's kind of been the workhorse over the last few weeks, but he's going to get his ops and he'll make the most of them when those present themselves.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
And we'll wrap up with Rico.
Good morning, Coach. Buenos dias.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Coach, about yesterday's game, I'm wondering if are you surprised a little bit on how the officials are prolonging that whistle? Because there was some key push-pull or push on the end of Kyren's runs where you got the extra 5 yards and big play with Steve Avila, and I think Jackson came in and, as they said, just push forward, and the whistle never sounded. And he kept pumping the legs, and he picked up extra yardage.
Yeah, but I thought that was a big one, especially the one that led to our first scoring drive. I think that's an attitude. And when you keep your legs churning and when it does kind of get stood up, but the momentum isn't totally stopped or going backwards, I think that shows an identity. And I think we've had some plays like that over the last few weeks of pushing the pile. I think our offensive line has played really tough. Steve's obviously done a great job, along with Alaric and Bo and Rob and K-Dot. And so I think those guys are asserting and establishing an identity that's been key and critical for the way that we've been able to play. I've been really proud of those guys.
And Coach, I'll follow up on that real quick. On the O-line, of course, and the D-line, of course, shining brightly, but the O-line coming back to rhythm and chemistry. Talk a little bit about how that has been going.
It's been huge, and I think when you look at it, it's been a clean sheet over the last few weeks of not giving up sacks. I think we've been able to run the football efficiently, and I think that's allowed us to be able to play different types of games. We've gotten a bunch of carries off really for the last month. The offensive line has done a great job, I think, asserting and establishing a toughness, the ability to be efficient in that phase. And I think that's made some other things come to life or allowed us to be able to sustain and maintain possession as a team to be able to close out games, whether that's against New Orleans, Buffalo, San Francisco, or yesterday. When the possessions were very limited just based on how much clock was churned out by both sides. I don't know that I've ever been a part of a game where you're in your fourth possession at the start of the fourth quarter. That was very unique. But all that really matters is finding a way to come away with the result we're hunting up, and the offensive line has been a huge part of us being on a 4-game win streak.
Coach, just want to ask you one more question on the outstanding play of Kyren, and he continues forward, breaking. Well, he's going to be setting records. So 2 more games to go in regular season. But your thoughts on him picking his holes, any blocking schemes maybe per team that you face that you have to make for him, or is he just really going based on his own instincts and his gut?
Yeah, I think the players have done a great job, and I think the run game is always about all 11. And, Kyren's been outstanding. I think he's done a great job. I think better backs make better blockers. I think he understands the intent of what we're trying to get done. I thought he did do a great job of creating on his own on a few runs yesterday. And then I thought he did a great job of being able to press the heels of the linemen and set blocks accordingly. And so it's always, football is the greatest team sport there is, but Kyren is an absolute stud. He brings a toughness, a physicality, just that energy that he plays with, I think, is uplifting to everybody that he's around. And he's been a catalyst, just like I was mentioning with the offensive line. Those two guys, those things go hand in hand, Kyren and the offensive line. And that's going to be key for us moving forward.
Muchas gracias. Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
Thanks, Coach. Good.
Okay. Thanks, guys.